The Gulf heats up, tankers seized, power moves unfold, and the world holds its breath. You're watching Times XP. It's me, Dhriti Yatri. Well, the Persian Gulf, calm on the surface, but underneath, a silent chessboard of warships, tankers, and rising tensions. And all of a sudden, two massive oil tankers, they were stopped, they were surrounded, they were taken. Yes, that just happened. Well, picture this. Foreign oil tankers glide through the Gulf waters, routine, predictable business as usual. And then Iran's Revolutionary Guard naval units, they moved in. There were speedboats, there were surveillance stream, tracking operations months in the making. Near the isolated and highly strategic Farsi Island, Iranian forces intercept both the vessels. In the meantime, Iranian authorities claim that they discovered over 1 million liters of diesel fuel suspected of being smuggled. 15 foreign crew members were detained and handed over to judicial authorities. Well, no official flags were revealed, no crew identities revealed, only one message delivered loud and clear. Iran is watching the Gulf, every inch of that. Then comes the oil war that nobody really talks about. Pause for a second. Why would oil smuggling matter so much to Iran right now? Here's the twist. Iran sells fuels at extremely low subsidy prices inside its own country. That price difference, it has quietly created a massive black market network, moving fuel across borders for profit. But another dramatic twist. This isn't just about smuggling. It's about power. It's about control. And it is about signaling the strength here. Well, it is kind of a dangerous pattern that is emerging right now. This isn't the very first time when tankers have been stopped in the Gulf waters. Iran has reportedly detained vessels again and again, sometimes accusing them of smuggling, sometimes responding to the geopolitical pressure. And each incident, it sends shockwaves through the global shipping hub, because the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, they carry a huge portion of a world oil supply. So every seizure becomes bigger than one ship. It becomes a warning to the rest of the world's energy lifeline. In fact, the US shadow is also there. Let's zoom out a little bit. Just days before the nuclear talks between Washington and Tehran, tensions were already rising. Military patrol were increasing, warships were quietly repositioning, and suddenly this tanker seizure, it unfolds. Well, the US also had previously intercepted ships suspected of carrying sanctioned Iranian oil, creating a very silent tit-for-tat maritime battle in the international waters. Each side watches, each side responds, and every move feels like a test of nerves. So in the end, the Gulf has become a pressure cooker right now. Imagine being a shipping captain sailing through the waters right now. Every radar signals, it could be a patrol boat. Every route choice could trigger suspicion. Every cargo load could become a diplomatic crisis for you right now. And the stakes, well, they are going to be massive. If stability spreads across Strait of Hormuz, global oil supplies could be shaken overnight. Fuel prices could spike, and economic shockwave, it could spread across the continents.
The Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has denied responsibility for failure to stop the 7th of October attack. Netanyahu released a redacted 55-page response to the state comptroller, and he seemed to deflect the blame entirely towards the security establishment, including his then defense chief, the Army and Intelligence Agency Shin Bet. Netanyahu also blamed the Israeli withdrawals from Lebanon and Gaza for the attack.
The document I am holding contains the answers I gave to the state comptroller as part of the comptroller's review of the events of October 7th. The comptroller asked me questions, and I answered them. I also addressed my conduct and the decisions I made, including my actions on that day, October 7th. The comptroller asked me questions, and I answered them. I also addressed my conduct and the decisions I made, including my actions on that day, October 7th.
The documents show that in a meeting with Netanyahu 10 days before Hamas's attack, an IDF military intelligence representative and then Shin Bet chief Ronan Bar had claimed that Hamas was not looking for an escalation. Netanyahu also released a partial cabinet meeting transcript from September 2023, in which the then Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said that the security situation in the Gaza Strip is stable and that Israel should hold back its forces against Hamas. Now, both Gallant and Barr were sacked by Netanyahu during the war. The documents include no acceptance of responsibility by Netanyahu, who has served as Prime Minister for more than 16 long years now, for the failures that have led to the attack that took place on the 7th of October.
9 News can tonight reveal the commute on the train is about to get a whole lot easier with a new tap-and-go system. The technology is already up and running on buses and trams, and by the end of the month, a simple tap of your credit or debit card will be all it will take to board a train.
They're already raising some eyebrows.
Saw them just now, but I wasn't really sure exactly what they are.
But tapping on through the gates of the Adelaide train station will soon look a little different.
We want to make it as easy as possible, as affordable as possible.
New tap and go gates on track to be up and running by the end of the month, allowing commuters to scan their debit, credit card or smartphone to board, like on buses and trams.
This is something that's going to be the most advanced tap and pay gates in the country. That would make things a lot easier because sometimes I run out of credit on my card and I can't top it up or the machines aren't working on the train.
Paper tickets also set to be phased out by the end of the month. But not everyone is on board with the digital transformation.
I'm not sure if the information would be secure, so it might be open to hacking, so I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it myself.
I don't think that's the best idea, especially for people who struggle to get around and prefer cash.
While the tap and pay upgrade is said to be a game changer for the system, Metro cards will still play a pivotal role for concession holders. The discounts not available with Tap and Go, but cheaper fares can still be secured on the Buy and Go app. And for commuters who travel on more than one public transport network, the upgrade will ensure they are only paying once within a 2-hour travel period.
It's a win for everyone and a good outcome for South Australians.
Bianca Wiley, 9 News.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Congressional Hispanic Caucus and Congressional Progressive Caucus for convening this very important discussion this evening. Over the past year, the Trump administration has pursued immigration enforcement actions that are deplorable, inhumane, and indeed deadly. Last month, in my district, in New York's Capital Region, a family of 5, including an 8-month-old who is reportedly a U.S. citizen, was detained and deported after ICE entered their apartment without a judicial warrant, a clear violation of the Fourth Amendment. In December, our Afghan community was repeatedly targeted, including ICE arresting a father and son after they exited a mosque following morning prayer. People who fled the Taliban, fearing for their lives and their families' lives, are now wondering if they will be picked up next by ICE. This is not who we are as a nation. We are supposed to uphold the values of freedom, the values of democracy, and the American dream. Instead, the very people who came here in pursuit of that dream are afraid to attend school, go to their jobs, go to church, and even leave their homes for fear of being hunted down, detained, and deported. Nowhere have the effects of ICE's operations been clearer than in Minneapolis. The murders of Renee Nicole Good and Alex Pretty, both U.S. citizens, both shot multiple times by federal agents, were senseless and indeed horrifying. 2 people who should be in the arms of their families today have instead been killed in the street. In their brutal and deadly campaign, ICE has lost all public trust and credibility. This agency, as it exists and operates, cannot continue. ICE must be abolished. With that, I yield back to my colleague and friend, Representative Aspiat.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Across the nation, out-of-control ICE agents are terrorizing our communities. They shot Renee Good in the face 4 times. They're tearing people out of their homes, out of the windows of their cars, and illegally detaining people who have brown skin. This is fascism, pure and simple, and ICE must be held accountable. Since I was elected to Congress, I've made 6 oversight visits to the Northwest Detention Center in my district. Each time I've gone, the lack of medical care and serious privacy concerns have consistently been issues. I was told by a detained individual that they were unable to receive the medications that they needed until nearly a week after it had run out. When they finally received it, it was the wrong dosage. Another person I met with asked the officer who had accompanied them to a health appointment in community to step out of the room while he received sensitive medical information, and the officer refused. This administration's reckless dehumanization of our immigrant neighbors is horrific. And it's not just immigrants they're terrorizing. Tribal members in my district and across the country are being instructed to carry their tribal IDs with them in case they're stopped by ICE. DHS is not above the law, and neither is Secretary Noem. We must hold them accountable, and we must prevent more death and violence. That's why I voted against funding lawless, out-of-control agents terrorizing our communities, and why I continue to call on us to impeach Secretary Noem and to hold the Trump administration accountable for the chaos and the violence they've unleashed, and to restructure a department that is no longer holding the trust of the American people and that needs serious reform. Thank you. I yield back.
Gentlelady for yielding. I agree that this amendment is absurd. We could easily solve our balanced budget problems by simply repealing the taxes, the tax cuts on millionaires and billionaires enacted over the last 10 years. But what is really the major problem in this country today is the fascism in our streets. The attacks on American citizens by masked hoodlums. If you were attacked by a masked person, you might think you were being kidnapped. You'd be justified in shooting the person to protect yourself. But we see people being shot for what? For driving a car? We see people, we see the ICE goons break into people's homes without a warrant. We see them drag out a man, an American citizen, in his underwear without even permitting him, in the snow, without even permitting him to get dressed. This is the major problem we have today, along with the attack on our elections. We saw last week under Kristi Noem's direction, or not Kristi Noem, under Tulsi Gabbard's direction, an assault on the election board in Fulton County, where they would be permitted, if they wanted to copy the election results, but not to take them with them and do God knows what with them. I fear that this is beginning an attempt by the Trump administration to rig the elections this year, to make the elections unfair by seizing in 15 or 16 Democratic cities the election machinery, and that would further the fascism we see in our streets. I think that is the major problem we facing this country today, the fascism in our streets and the nascent attempt by the Trump administration to rig the election. Because after all, the Trump administration refuses to admit that the 2020 election was fair when 62 judges dismissed 62 lawsuits attacking it. It was completely fair. The Trump administration keeps saying it's not that it was unfair, looking for evidence for it, which they're not going to find, and they're going to try to rig the election. Those are our major problems today, and that's what we ought to be addressing, not this stupid amendment, which, as the gentlelady from California said, is going nowhere and would be a bad thing even if it did. I thank the gentlelady. I yield back to her.
I reclaim my time and yield back.
Since you have refused to leave the roadway, you will be placed under arrest on the charge of disorderly conduct. If you do not cooperate and accompany the arresting officer to the prisoner transport vehicle, or if you resist arrest, you may be charged with additional crimes.
Sanctuary Campus is a moral declaration that education belongs to everyone, regardless of status. We call on Columbia's leadership. Stand with your students.
This is Jackie Kent with Como News, where things are really ramping up outside City Hall. There are hundreds, if not over 1,000 students from Seattle schools and private schools rallying outside City Hall, demanding ICE is out of Seattle. I'll flip you around. This rally has now moved from the front of City Hall to now into the streets along 4th Avenue. I'll flip you around. You can see where the rally started, but now people are walking in the street along 4th Avenue. They tell me they're taking a stance against allowing immigration enforcement officials on or near their school campuses. No incidents have been documented at schools, but you might remember just a couple weeks ago, there were unconfirmed reports of ICE activity in the broader North Seattle area. That caused concern and prompted 6 Seattle public schools to initiate safety protocols. The students today have marched and took the light rail from their schools. They walked out of class to get to City Hall. We are speaking with them about their message. We talked to City Council member Bob Kettle out here. We are also reaching out to the school district and other city leaders for reaction to this big demonstration. We'll have the update today on Como News.
Nestas e nas próximas horas, muitos vão continuar a enfrentar situações de extrema dificuldade. A chuva sem precedentes e os riscos de cheias colocam riscos sérios em várias regiões do país. Quero, por isso, reiterar um apelo muito determinado para que nestas horas, que são fundamentais, todos sigam as recomendações das autoridades. Os riscos não devem ser desvalorizados.
We do move on to the other news tonight. A chaotic scene unfolding in Los Angeles. The images coming in, a car slamming into a grocery store, multiple people killed, trapped as the car smashed into that store. There's also news tonight about the driver coming in, and Trevor Ault from Los Angeles.
Tonight, at least 3 people killed after a car plowed into this Los Angeles supermarket. Calls for help coming just before 12:15 at the 99 Ranch Market.
We do have multiple people trapped underneath the vehicle into the structure.
I was on my scooter on my way here and I heard a loud bang.
Fire trucks, ambulances, and first responders swarming the scene, treating multiple victims. The market packed with shoppers not far from UCLA.
And you could see that car, I mean, so far inside that building.
A vehicle had struck a bicyclist, and then as you could see, it's entered inside of that ranch market and bakery, of which there were multiple patrons that were inside. There's seating and table areas.
At least 6 other victims were hurt, the injuries ranging from minor to critical. Building inspection teams now checking the structure of the supermarket to see if it was compromised.
And David, sources tell ABC News the driver is a 70-year-old woman who is cooperating with investigators. They say so far this does not appear to be intentional. It looks just like a terrible accident.
A Bacchus Marsh man is fighting for life after he was set on fire during an altercation with a neighbour. As Chester Nunn reports, his attacker is still on the run.
A Bacchus Marsh street swarming with police after a fiery feud.
He was yelling at me and set me on fire.
Residents say they heard blood-curdling screams. They rushed to help and were faced with a confronting sight.
A neighbour of mine that lives over here was screaming in pain and burnt all over his hands. His skin was nothing like very severe burns. And yeah, he'd been set on fire by somebody.
And he's running around rolling on the ground on fire. We just called the ambulance.
That was around 9 o'clock last night when a man staying in one of these public housing flats poured petrol over his neighbour. CCTV, too graphic to broadcast, shows him igniting the blaze before flames quickly spread across the victim's body.
I thought he had like napkins over his hands, but it was like the skin hanging off his hands. Yeah, he was in a lot of pain, the poor guy.
The 57-year-old man was flown to hospital with serious injuries. Forensics officers spent most of the day trawling the property for evidence, a jerry can among the items bagged. Detectives now have the painstaking task of going through the scene again for any more clues as they try to work out what sparked the altercation. The victim remains in hospital tonight in a critical condition.
He's a good guy. He's a good guy. He's not... You know, he's a good guy. What can I say? He comes from a big family. He's
nice bloke.
All right, there's breaking news coming in from Pakistan. This is an incident that has happened in Islamabad. Several people are reportedly injured after an explosion in Imam Bara in Islamabad. The explosion has been reported at Tarlai Imambara, which is situated in the Shehzad town area of the capital. The police and rescue services have now reached the site and rescue operations are underway. An emergency has been imposed at the Pakistan Institute of Medical Sciences and CDA Hospital. The main emergency, orthopedic, burn center and neurology departments have been activated. The injured are being shifted to PIMS and the Polyclinic Hospital in the nearby area. But remember, today's incident comes less than 3 months after a suicide blast outside a district and sessions court building in Islamabad's G11 area on the 11th of November last year. 12 people had been killed that time and more than 30 were injured in the blast.
Emily Beard said she put her trust in a brand to feed her baby. But like many parents we've spoken to from across the UK, she was horrified when she found out what was in her daughter's bottle was part of a nationwide public health recall.
We gave it to her for the first time on the 6th of January for her evening feed just before bed, and within 20 minutes of her having this bottle, she projectile vomited all over my husband. And the first thing we did was blame ourselves. Is it a sickness bug? What have we fed her? And you immediately just think, what have we done? You blame yourself because you have fed but actually it's not your fault. It's a trusted brand that has put that product on the shelves.
Last month, Nestlé recalled more than 60 batches of its SMA formula. Producer Danone recalled one batch of its Aptamil formula. It was because of the presence of a toxin called cerulide. It's heat resistant and it can cause vomiting, diarrhoea and stomach cramps.
The UK Health Security Agency has now confirmed to us that dozens of children have fallen sick with these symptoms consistent with toxic poisoning. These are babies and toddlers, and they've all fallen ill after being fed from the affected batches.
So it's a fast-moving, ongoing investigation, and we are just collecting information from all the children who may have been affected. We've had some children who had been admitted to hospital, but they've recovered and they've gone home. From the UK HSA perspective, this is the first cerulide toxin incident that we have come across.
Since first investigating this story, we've spoken to families from across the UK whose children have fallen sick since being fed from recalled batches, some requiring hospital treatment. One mum told me, "I felt like I was feeding him poison. I felt even worse because the timing coincided with me transitioning from combination breastfeeding to full formula. So I couldn't help but think if I would have carried on breastfeeding, it may not have affected him so heavily." Another said, "After stopping breastfeeding, I put my full trust into Nestlé, the brand and their product. Our daughter Rebecca became very ill mid-December and all over Christmas with severe vomiting, which led to her choking and needing to go to hospital. It was horrific." Today, Nestlé told us, "We are very sorry to hear about these cases. Our teams will work closely with any families who report these types of concerns to us. We continue to ask parents to check the batch codes of recalled products against our recall notice and thank all of those who have contacted us so far." The UK HSA say they, along with the Food Standards Agency, are continuing to investigate. Katerina Vitozzi, Sky News.
Continue to climb in North Carolina. State health officials say another 29 people died from the flu since the last update a week ago. The Department of Health and Human Services says statewide flu deaths now stand at 236. So far this season, 185 deaths were for people 65 or older, 32 between 50 and 64, 14 between 25 and 49, 4 between 5 and 17, and 1 under 5. Last season, 544 people died from the flu, the highest number since 2009.
Measles cases in North Carolina continue to increase, with one person now hospitalized. The Department of Health and Human Services says there have been 15 confirmed cases in the state since late December. DHHS says the 15 cases have spread to a half dozen counties. State health officials say 14 of the cases are children 17 and younger, and one is an adult. DHHS says 74% of those with measles had not been vaccinated. Measles is highly contagious and can live up to 2 hours in the air where an infected person was located.
Whooping cough cases have surged across the country to the highest levels in more than 30 years. As the child vaccination rate drops to a 10-year low, doctors are urging parents to get their kids and themselves immunised. Selena Zhang has more.
Riley Hughes was just 3 weeks old when he died from whooping cough. And while in the last 10 years the free vaccine has become more available,
my concern point is that we're going to see those catastrophic outcomes coming back, and the numbers are certainly on the rise.
Whooping cough cases have fluctuated over the last decade. They dropped during COVID, but since then there's been a significant spike, nearly 38,000 recorded from 2024 to 2025.
Even early in 2026, we're still seeing quite significant numbers of cases.
As infections have risen, the number of children fully immunised has fallen to a 10-year low. Vaccination rates haven't reached the national target of 95% since 2020. But it's not just children.
There is quite a substantial drop in the number of pregnant mums, for example, taking up the whooping cough vaccine by 10% or so.
We worry about misinformation. We worry about the knock-on effect that fear has driven into social media.
What I would love to see is that we provide free vaccination counselling appointments via the GP where parents can have all their questions asked.
The whooping cough vaccine is free for infants, adolescents and pregnant women, but GPs are urging all adults, especially those who look after children, to get immunised as well.
This week we should be preparing for our son's 11th birthday. Instead, we're sitting here talking about immunisation because whooping cough took his life, and we just don't want that to happen to any other family.
And our final story today is from India. In several neighbourhoods of East Indian city Chennai, mornings have begun with an unsettling sight. Black feathers scattered across roads, pavements and parks. This as the carcasses of hundreds of crows were found across the area. Authorities have confirmed an outbreak of the highly pathogenic H5N1 avian influenza virus. Laboratory tests conducted on samples collected by officials have confirmed the virus. The Union Ministry of Animal Husbandry has now written to the Tamil Nadu government, urging immediate surveillance and containment measures.
Positive case for highly pathogenic avian influenza raises significant concerns about the rapid spread of the virus. The situation demands urgent attention to mitigate risks to both animal and human health. It is requested that the One Health approach be implemented, integrating the efforts across various sectors, including human health and wildlife, to address the issue in a comprehensive manner.
But what is H5N1 and why are officials so worried? It is commonly known as bird flu and is a highly dangerous strain of influenza A. The flu primarily affects wild birds and poultry. It spreads rapidly among bird populations and causes high mortality in flocks. Human infections are rare, but when they occur, they can be severe. It often involves health issues like pneumonia and serious respiratory illness, and the fatality rates are higher than seasonal flu. There are no confirmed human cases in Tamil Nadu so far, but health agencies are treating the outbreak seriously as the virus can occasionally jump species after close exposure. Doctors urge people to seek medical help if flu-like symptoms appear after bird exposure. The symptoms include fever, coughing, a sore throat, and breathing difficulties. But why are the deaths of crows a worrying sign? Well, that's because these birds act like an early warning system. They move between garbage dumps, water bodies, and human settlements. Their deaths often signal the circulation of a virus in the wider environment. Officials fear the infection could spill into backyard poultry, commercial farms, other animals, and subsequently into humans. Recent bird flu detections in Bihar have added to the concerns. Authorities have launched a multi-layered response across Tamil Nadu. Strict disposal rules are in place. The dead birds must be incarcerated or simply and deeply buried. No field post-mortems are allowed, and carcasses have to be sent to designated disease labs. Several public advisories are also in place for residents, including do not touch the birds, report dead bird sightings immediately, use gloves in the case of unavoidable contact, and wash hands thoroughly after exposure. Forest officials and local bodies have also been instructed to immediately report bird deaths.
केंद्र सरकार ने समय समय पर एनिमल हस्बेंड्री डिपार्टमेंट ने समय समय पर इस प्रकार की एडवाइजरी हम लोग करते रहते हैं और हम लोग उस पर पूरा फोकस किए हुए हैं, ध्यान रखें और उस पर नियंत्रण करेंगे.
And the government has also launched several public awareness campaigns, disinfection drives in affected areas, while officials are also tracking unusual mortality patterns. The goal is simple: stop the virus before it reaches farms or people. For now, Chennai's outbreak is primarily an animal health crisis and not a human one. But it also is a warning. Bird flu does not begin in hospitals. It begins quietly, in trees, lakesides, rooftops and streets, among creatures that share the city long before people notice. And sometimes the first sign is something as simple as a quiet morning without crows.